Good morning. Welcome to the show. Manesh, one of the things I want to talk about right off the get-go is talk about AI. Is AI going to take our jobs?
Yes, most people are not prepared for this. And that's what shocks me is this drones. I think we mentioned that word before. People are being prepared as drones just to go through meandering through life. And to be honest, a lot of people who are currently in school and colleges, the 2 to 4 years that they would have spent there, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, by the time they come out, their job would have been already replaced by somebody who was smart enough to understand the value of AI and can get even better results. That's what I see is going to be happening, Anthony.
It's exactly right. When we talk about the education system, we can really notice that, it was well built for the Industrial Revolution. Right. I mean, a lot of us, we look at it like you can almost feel the pride that our society has by creating this. We've created this education system, and they're all patting themselves on the back, which was great because it really did serve the masses at the time. And, boys and girls and men and women could go into school and they can learn how to read signs and how to operate machines and even figure out how to create the financial system and figure out how to create the process thinking and all that stuff. Worked well for the Industrial Revolution, but it's become outdated, and the fear of evolving has been one of the things that's holding them back. Right? You can see that.
I totally agree with you. I think one of the biggest things, and I mentioned this before to you as well, is life is going to be very predictable for every human being. There are no major surprises in life, other than obviously unforeseen circumstances. You and I will grow. We learn to talk. We learn to walk. We will need to, at some point, learn enough to have a profession. We are going to look for a spouse, a partner in life. We get married. We're going to have children. We're going to look for other areas to improve, provide a legacy for other people in our lives. Those are extremely predictable events which are going to happen. Our education system was never designed, unfortunately, to prepare people for that, which is the reason I've homeschooled my children. My daughter is 20 and my son is 15. And the idea was I wanted them to step back and develop what is critical thinking, which is beyond what the masses think.
In fact, you might even say, in fact, I've said multiple times that school has actually bred out critical thinking. Right? It actually takes the creative thinking out of the student in many, many ways. Now, there are some teachers out there who've been inspiring to me, and I would say that there's a handful of them that did a great job of finding that spark in me and giving me that. But I would say a majority of the teachers I worked with, there was some issues there. Now, I'm also not saying that teachers were bad. I'm saying a lot of them are forced to deliver these curriculums that are kind of driven to them, and they're measured on them. I believe that most teachers start out with this enthusiastic idea of training students, and the system itself drives them into this way of teaching students that are measured by these cards that aren't necessarily creative or inspiring or even adaptive to where the world's going.
I totally agree, and let me be clear. My two sisters, their entire career was a teaching career. They were teachers. My wife has an elementary education degree, and she actually did serve in a public school for a year. I have taught in public school as additional, resource in different ways possible. So I'm not against education. In fact, when I grew up, my main focus was to be the best student in my school, which I was in quite a few cases. I loved my teachers. The teachers loved me because I was very attentive. Now, here is, I think, what is the major difference that I see, and the more I learn, the more I'm starting to evaluate. What is happening is we have become a group of people who are looking for an expert to give us the answer. And you and I know by now, the answer lies somewhere within us and with our ability to research and come up with options which are suitable for us. And the more we look for experts to solve our problems, the less critical thinking we develop, and we never question the information given by the so-called experts. So again, from my perspective, yeah, I understand certain areas. Some people have devoted a lot of time and attention, their energy, they have researched, and I agree that there are some areas that they're really, really good at. But it doesn't mean I have to just take their information without asking questions. So my definition of critical thinking is a little different than some people. My definition of critical thinking is when you can ask profound questions of people you already agree with. When you can ask questions of people you already agree with, now I know you have critical thinking. Well, that is my yardstick, my measurement of people I engage with to see how much critical thinking they have.
Well, to be able to be on a playground, I call it the playground, right? There are a lot of folks who, look, I'm not here to have you just be a yes man, right? I want you to be, in fact, and I need you to be. And if we look back at our society, even in its early days, before all the industrial revolution, before all of this stuff, when we were tribal, we needed you to do that. We needed each person in the tribe to have critical thinking, because if they didn't, the tribe didn't survive. Right? We literally did not survive as a group of people if, as we grew human beings and our elders took care of our youngsters, and our youngsters were guided in a loving, caring way to push them, and then our youngsters learned and brought back to the tribe critical thinking to help the future of what's happening, because one day they're going to run the tribe, right? They're going to run our group, and today that's what scares me the most is our folks are looking for these what I often refer to as messiahs, right? They're looking for these people outside of themselves. We've done it for many, many years in religions. We've done it many, many years in, and today we have influencers who I watch my kids on some of these social media platforms see these people that are calling themselves influencers. And I'm like, look, they're peddling goods. Are you not seeing that? These are not people that are creating critical thinking. They're creating the stuff that is really toxic, right? The stuff that really creates the lower brain stuff, the stuff that's really addictive. Like, I need to have what they have, right? It's not looking at it going, does that make sense? Right? Does that product or me buying that product in any way make sense for me and my life? They start wanting what they have, and it becomes this behavior that's toxic.
I totally agree with you. So here is, I think, where I would like to move towards AI. And AI is nothing but pattern recognition. Now, for those who may not know, my bachelor's is in electrical engineering. My master's is in systems engineering and management. And coincidentally, I came from the same college that Sundar Pichai came from, who is the Google CEO. And the reason I mention that is there is something called systems thinking. You look at the holistic picture rather than just looking at the different parts of it. And from my just simple perspective of looking at these ways is AI has been around for a long time in the simple idea of pattern recognition, which when I was a programmer, I used to design programs or software where my goal was obviously to mimic the human system into a program. And the more I can mimic the human system based on the information I had, the pattern that I recognize, the easier it is for me to create a plan for the software to follow and actually produce similar outcomes as are required. And pattern recognition is the foundation. So now how does that help you? Well, anytime you and I are becoming better at seeing the pattern and then using the pattern to predict something happening in the future, that is where AI comes into play. And because computers have become so large, they have so much information in them that they can decipher different ways to see what the patterns could be, go through different ways of the logic, so to speak, and say, hey, this is what is going to happen likely. But a human being is going to be able to help make sure that it is not garbage in, garbage out, which is where critical thinking comes into play. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Absolutely. I think the benefit of the computer is that it gets a sense of a massive amount of information, right? It also has a clarity of vision without some of the human layer stuff that we have on us. This, our upbringing, some of the stuff that we layer on to our thinking patterns, right? And I think some of that stuff is why when you talk about critical thinking, right? Can we see that our ability to critically think without the stuff that's layered on top of it? Sometimes I call it seeing through your own sunglasses, right? Your life has kind of been put into these sunglasses, and some of that you're seeing through, and it clogs or fogs up our critical thinking ability. Where computers may have, I mean, sometimes it's a benefit, sometimes it's not, right? Having some life experience, we can adapt to it's great, but sometimes some of that life experience has caused some delay in that or fogginess to it. So how does that critical thinking right? How do we create critical thinking with the human being that is as clear as possible?
But I think the first part which you're mentioning here is objectivity, right? How can we be less biased and more objective?
There you go.
Now, nothing happens in vacuum. You and I know that, right? So we always have a bias. We always have a bias in generally saying, this is what I want, right? Now, unfortunately, when people lack critical thinking or haven't been focused on asking those questions, is they have an inherent bias to find agreement in everything they do. And because we are looking for agreement in everything we do, guess what happens? Critical thinking goes out of the window. That's because right. We are no longer asking objectively, looking from a bigger picture to say, hey, do I know the truth? And again, truth evolves over a time period. When I say truth evolves, what do I mean by that? Like Isaac Newton was the one who discovered gravitation laws. And obviously we all talk about the sun. At that time, people believed that the earth was at the center of the sun, a center of the universe. And now we know that's not the case. So that level of truth will evolve. And that's why we need to consistently ask questions, because that curiosity creates critical thinking. And the curiosity is based on a bigger picture of asking ourselves, do I really know enough of the truth so I can see the pattern and predict the future? Does it connect with what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. You know, I feel like the gift I want to have for my children and the people that surround my life is the ability to walk through what's going to be very noisy. Right, the world's there's a lot of noise coming at us, right? A lot of stuff, and in the most beautiful way, right? All these things are great creations, but it's noisy, and I can have the propensity to get clogged up with all of this noise and watch all the shiny objects coming by, and not be present. And my want is that my children and the people around me stay in the place of self-awareness, like really understand ourselves the best we can, really work on the presence of being, right? To take care of ourselves, do our own human work, and then be able to walk through life heads up, just noticing, right? The awareness of what's going on. Right. The gift I would love to give all my children is the ability to stay as conscious as possible. Right. Where other people in society, my guess is, and I'm seeing, are checking out. Right? They're checking out in multiple ways. Right. They're checking out mentally in the, with drugs and alcohol, or physically with drugs and alcohol, but also mentally with social media, spending lots and lots of time in places, having other people to give them their thoughts. And less taught in prayer and meditation, in some of those places where they can humble themselves, sit back, and feel their awarenesses, their being, right, and be able to look at the world with a little bit more objective thinking than being fed what to think.
And I agree with you totally. And I think this is where the social media influencers and being on social media so much, and social media is designed to keep you there, right? Okay. And they have figured out that the more you are emotionally engaged, the more you are going to stay on the platform, because human beings are emotional. So the emotions they have found, which they are really using very well to keep people there, one of them is jealousy, envy. Another one is anger. And the one thing that they want to have predominantly in social media is other people's opinions of you is more important. And that's how they have designed social media. Now, whether it was initially designed, I don't know. But that's where it is today, is you and I'm just saying in general sense, I'm not talking about you, Anthony, is we are looking for the likes. We are looking for people to comment. We are looking for people to see what we are posting out there, because that is driving us to look for other people's approval. And the worst thing you can do to develop critical thinking is to look for other people's approval, which is why I go back to the basics of critical thinking in my definition is, can you question the people you already agree with? Because if you can, you're likely to be willing to say, hey, you know what? I'm not looking for other people's approval on this particular issue because I differ the way I look at it. And I think that's what needs to be happening. And you and I have been talking about children because I know it's a big passion for you, big passion for me as well. And as we discussed, you've been to Agra, which is where Taj Mahal is, and Agra is the city I was born in. I loved watching some of the videos that you have there. Amazing part of it. And I think all of life is really nothing if we look at it as a pursuit. I'm not talking of God and morals here. I'm saying in a simple way is raising our level of consciousness. And most people are confused when they come across the word consciousness. Okay. Consciousness, in my opinion, is simply understanding a deep relationship between cause and effect. When you fully understand cause and effect, you integrate it into yourself, you raise your level of consciousness because you no longer see things the way you used to see. And you are such an accomplished person, you help big companies and corporations because in your consciousness, your ability to create the results from the causes and all the kind of stuff to help these big companies like whether it is Dunkin' Donuts or Boston Market, Boston Chicken, etc., your level of awareness of how to integrate the construction industry, the outsourcing, as well as making sure that the efficiency, effectiveness is there, your level of consciousness is much higher because your cause and effect understanding is at a deeper level. Would you agree with my way of looking at it?
Yeah, look, for me, it's been a path, right? That whole journey is a path. And I would tell you that I spent the first 48 years of my life, I often equate it to being a dog, right? Walking into a room. I've got a little dog, and I heard her name is Gucci, and Gucci's this cute little Labradoodle, golden doodle. And you take her off the leash, you walk into a room, she runs around smelling everything. She's just so aware of checking out the world. And in my first 48 years of life, there was a lot of that, right? Going around, smelling everything and looking at it, smelling every person, everything, and just really doing that. I don't know that I accomplished much other than really great discovery, right? There probably is some greatness in the ability to discover. And my want is for human beings to really spend time not being locked into one way of thinking. Go get learn with multiple ways of thinking. The gift I can give young people today is try on multiple jobs, try on different places, take on internships, take on as many places where you can learn and discover as possible. And then at 48, I really upped the game on awareness and consciousness, right? Where I really started looking at my body and going, all right, what are the things I'm feeding this body, right? Drugs and alcohol or booze, and I eliminated all of that. I started looking at some of the behaviors and addictions that really I say are mental, spiritual and mental consciousness, right? Where I could look at anger, fears, anxieties, and go, all right, what that could be just as much a checkout as possible. So from there forward, you can really start to see massive development in conscious behavior with groups of people that I was able to work with, and the speed by which I could develop organizations and companies. From 48 to today, I've got I'm now working on company number 10 and company number 11 that are developing really, really well, right? So the ideas and all of that stuff coming into place where it takes a level of clarity and to be able to sit, first of all, in a very uncomfortable space, allow your body to be uncomfortable, and then step into the creation and the idea creation, and then start to work on execution, which is really the idea that gets executed on, and we expand and organize, and that whole process about developing companies. So we could get into that a little bit more later on, but that really is about that process for me.
Well, here is the part that I think you just mentioned was very fascinating, is there is a point we'll reach at different stages, is this all there is to it, right? And we come up with maybe, some things like, hey, this was really great, I did accomplish certain things, but then there is another yearning. And maybe you heard of Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, which is also similar to Abraham Maslow's as well. The first need we have is certainty. Second is we need some variability in our life. The third is some level of connection. We want to feel significant. We also want to have contribution in other people's lives and simultaneously grow. So when we have all these 6 needs being fulfilled, and that's one of the things I talk about in some of my books like Stop Hiring Losers, $1 Million Team Secrets, is when you and your employees, your team members are fulfilling those needs, they're going to be loyal and they're going to be very, very really good contributors to the community, to your jobs and other places. Unfortunately, that's not something we always look at. Like you said, education system doesn't make you think about those things which are relevant, which are going to be required. And any time in lives when we don't feel fulfilled, it's because one of these needs are not being met at a level that needs to be met. And you came to some conclusion about that. I don't know which exactly one was this that came into play. And you said, I need to evolve to the next level of consciousness. And I applaud you for actually being aware and making those changes.
Well, I think that we all go through those throughout life, right? Maybe there's a consciousness that we have as a child. We start to understand that we're different and we're unique to other. But I think those awarenesses all manifest throughout the life cycle, and that's the part where I feel like we could make the biggest difference in what's about to happen, is keeping and being with and seeing our children as and our group and the people that work for us and the companies we develop and the ideas that we create, or see the human beings that we're walking the planet with as in a space today is how do I support them in seeing them, right? So they know they're being seen. And then give them a place where it's okay to be different. That I don't need you to be a drone. In fact, I don't want you a drone. The fear that we all have is if I'm different, right? It could even be prehistoric, right? Some of these behaviors we learned and carried. They're embedded in our DNA. My judgment is that a lot of that molecule, that DNA molecule of wanting to fit in, probably had to survive 40,000 years ago, right? I mean, being different than your tribe was probably not good. You wanted to fit in and do what they did, and if you weren't part of the tribe, you were out there on your own, and surviving by yourself was not going to work, right? So some of that development of being part of a tribe, in our DNA is probably built into it. Now today, that has outgrown. It's one of our natural instincts that it's overgrown itself. Right, it's kind of like a nice plant that was great in our yard at one point. Beautiful, look how pretty that plant is. But now it's overgrown itself, and no one's gone back and pruned the idea that okay, maybe this is a natural instinct that's outgrown its beauty originally, right? So the instinct is now outgrown itself and become maybe even toxic, right?
And I think from what you're saying, here is I think the key part. Change was taking a long time before, right?
That's right.
And being able to fit in and being a requirement was relatively easy as well. It was helpful, correct? Okay. But now change is taking place at a dramatic pace. Technology, AI that we have mentioned here as well. Like maybe some people will not like my statement here, but I think a lot of colleges are going to be out of business in the next 2 to 4 years if the parents and children pay attention. That's the key, right? Because anything you want, which is delivered at a very high quality of simplicity, which the person who is watching can understand and then relate to the next level of complex concept, is available on YouTube, like what we are discussing today as well to some degree. And YouTube is just one example. There is so much information available that people who want to learn a new knowledge can learn at a very fast pace from somebody who has a very high level of proficiency in it. And that is the first place. Now, developing skill is something different, which is the reason I wrote the book, which I'm completing, called 7 Critical Career Skills They Don't Teach in School with my daughter, Muskan, is that people confuse knowledge and skill. There is a big difference between the two. Knowledge is simply information assembled in some form or fashion for you to be able to grasp. That's how I see knowledge. Skill is being able to take that knowledge and turn it into an activity repeated over time, which creates a certain level of proficiency to get a result. Skills are not automatic. Skills just don't happen. And you and I need to focus on certain knowledge and repetitive behavior with some guidance and support normally. Like I can tell you, I don't juggle very well. So I know the knowledge of juggling. I know you have to take 2 balls here, 1 ball here, and start doing it. And I hired somebody who was a juggler to teach me and my children. We didn't do really well. We had some level, but not really the proficiency. Why? It's a skill. And I think this is the part which is missing in schools and colleges. They are not being taught the skills to adapt to a changing environment. And that, I think, is the cornerstone that a college, through critical thinking, through asking questions what the future holds, will help people to discern. It's like, these are the areas I need to focus on. These are the skills I need to develop. And those skills, which are predictable in some areas, obviously, like we talked about growing up, being a parent as well, etc., is all of these are skills that we can help people learn and make a better future for our children, but also a better future for our whole planet, the world as we live in. I think that's really how I look at education. Does that connect with how you?
Yeah. I think you're right on. The skill development. Today everyone wants to be an instant influencer. They want to go out and they want this instant skill. And look, one thing I've learned is knowledge is just the beginning, right? The next part of it is honing your skills, honing your craft, and that takes relentless behavior, right? And most people, they want to have the development of they want it now, and most people want to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? It's a great line, but the whole idea is that you've got to do the work, right? You got the idea is that if you want to be a great pianist, it's 10,000 hours of moving your fingers. Once I understand how the songs are played, how sheet music's read, that's great. Now getting it from the sheet music to my fingers in a systematic way that's artistic and beautiful, that takes some skills. Now I could also say that as we integrate with AI, that the gift of that, where I think colleges have to pay attention, is that AI will teach me the way I learn best. Now, I just sent one of my children to a very expensive college, right? She's going off to Dayton, and it's a beautiful college. It's great, right? And they're working hard on a great education. And I think they'll give them a great, what she was lacking in high school from, the stuff they're, today she's on her own and she's self-developing. And to me, that's the gift of this, is that I'm not there to wipe her nose. I'm not there I've given her the ability. I've kind of pushed her out the nest, and now she's there studying herself. She's creating that critical thinking that's valuable. Now, to me, what you were talking about is what the scary part for colleges are. Artificial intelligence is going to create learning the way that each individual learns best. It may not be behind a book. It may be in a way. You may work great while you're eating cereal in the morning. I like a video, or I like you interact with an idea. Today, I wasn't the best student, but I love learning. I travel the world to learn. I read books to learn, and it just was the problem I had was the way they taught me in school wasn't very inspiring, right? Although I had some great teachers. Look, I had some great teachers. I mean, amazing. They changed my life. And from that point of view of relationship and caring about me, that part I love. But, I don't know that I always did well with testing and having to do anything. When I wanted to do something, now you can't stop me from learning, right? The whole reason why I do the podcast is I love, being with authors and creators like yourself, where I get to learn your ideas and talk to you personally. That to me is the most inspiring part about my journey in the podcast world, is being with amazing people like yourself, that your ideas inspire me. It's a learning journey. So I think that's the gift of where AI is going to go. And if we stay conscious of that, if colleges really got to pay attention to, all right, how are we going to do this to really inspire our students and take data and information about learning and start to apply it to an AI model that might teach a student a whole nother way.
Yeah, so what you just said is so helpful for people to understand, is that learning is critical. So here's what I was teaching my daughter the other day. I spend a lot of time with my family. We go to the walk on the beach quite regularly with my daughter and stuff like that. So I was teaching her, and I think critical thinking is a key component of the skill that I think everybody needs to learn and should be taught as early as possible as a skill. And that skill I call is decision making. Decision making, in my opinion, ideally speaking, comes from three different components. The first component is courage to look at choices and be independent of that fear, or whatever that is, because otherwise you'll just do the same thing over and over, because that's the convenient way to do it. So that's the courage. Every decision which is important enough needs some level of courage. The second is being aware of the values that are important to you, that are nurturing you, that are the ones that you think will help you in your life. And the third one is the identity you are creating. In your case, you have created now since obviously the revelation you had in your own life about learning, is you are coming from a future identity of learning. And that is driving you, in my opinion, how you are looking at opportunities presented to you. And then you'll keep making decisions pursuing that identity, which is the cornerstone of all our behaviors, because every decision at the end is driven by our identity. Do you see your identity developing as a person who is keen to learn, keen to connect with people, and keen to improve your understanding and consciousness of life?
Absolutely. That's key to the consciousness in the moment. And in fact, I even say, we're going to go back and I'm going to quote Wayne Gretzky, who I'm not sure why I always, I'm quoting a hockey player, but I love the quote. He always said that what made him such a great hockey player was he never skated to where the puck was. He was always skating to where the puck was going. And there's the gift of being conscious. It's really start to look and create an awareness, at least start to open the opportunity, look at those patterns you were talking about, right? Start to notice the patterns that are happening. First of all, understand the predictable ones that are clearly predictable, that I know that I'm going to transition through these patterns. Right? They're clearly life patterns that all of us understand. Right, going through school, going through marriage, going through lower education, upper education, the things that we go, career development, those are patterns that we know are going to get created. And start to look at, all right, how do I apply what's happening today? Right, the actions that are happening today if you use Gretzky, what's happening on the ice now? Right, those two guys are over there doing this. Where's that puck going to go to next? And start to use today's information to start to predict where it's about to go. Will we be right 100% of the time? No, but every great leader I've ever worked with has spent as many times in mistakes, but they're trying, right? They're always trying to create, even if there's a failure, they're always trying to go through it. And, I'm going to give you a little example. This weekend I had daddy-daughter weekend with my daughters. We were up in the woods, and it was a beautiful weekend, right? We had this weekend with a bunch of men who were with their daughters, and it's just a great weekend. And it ends with this game of capture the flag, right? So two teams line up, one on side, the dad's on one side, the daughter's on the other side. The flags are on the far end of the field, and you got to get to this little circle where the flag is, and you're safe when you're in there. And then from there, you got to make it flag back over the line. And the dads won, which I'm really proud of, because there were a lot of girls and they were really fast, but the dads won. And why we won, I believe, is because we kept trying, right? Even we would go and they would tag us, and we'd go, and where the girls were trying to make it from the circle there perfectly, and the girls kind of just they didn't have as many attempts. We probably had 40 attempts to every one of their attempts. And the idea that we were kind of talking about together as a group was trying, even if we fail, we'll learn knowledge on how to do the next one a little bit better. Right, so this one we didn't hide the flag. So a bunch of men bunched up together. We kind of put the flag in between us, and then the one guy ran off one way, pretending like he was running. We did some fakes, and we learned different techniques. And how do we apply that to our life? I think is a gift for an analysis.
Well, you mentioned the main concept of what is the book about: growth mindset versus fixed mindset. You basically nailed it down to the wire here, because growth mindset is about learning while doing, while trying. Whereas fixed mindset is, I have an identity and I cannot try and improve myself. And I've been guilty of doing this myself in different areas of my life. We are not growth mindset in all the areas of our lives. And it's useful to interact and create a team environment around us who are growing in those areas, whether it is following God, whether it's being a family person, whether it's physical fitness, etc., all these areas. And what you just showed very well with an example is, the more you try, the more you find ways to win. And that's exactly my analysis in a simple way, is why you won.
That's awesome. As we continue to develop where we're going, your books have been legendary. Let's talk a little bit about the books you got, the two books you got out, right? And you got another one getting ready to come out?
Yeah, I published over 10 books, and some of them were to help other people who didn't really have the skill to publish. Now, I didn't have it either. I had to learn, pay somebody, coach. That's basically, and that's one of the key things about my book, 7 Critical Career Skills They Don't Teach in School, is you and I have to become conscious that we need to learn from other people who have results that we are looking for. And I think somehow we confuse, there are different people. So for example, teachers are people who makes whatever the idea is simple enough for us to understand. Trainer is somebody who helps us understand a skill and then duplicate that skill. Then we have a coach whose job is to really point us towards the area that we want to go in and also provide us some opportunities, resources to grow our skill. And I think we need to look for those people in our lives to say, hey, is this a teacher, trainer, or a coach? And the right coach and mentor will see where you are, where you want to go, and help you create that bridge instead of being, hey, everybody is the same in my class, I'm going to give the same information and education to those people. Whereas a coach and a mentor who is really designing their approach based on you, where you are and where you want to go, is going to help you develop the skills that are really critical rather than just going and getting a bunch of information, knowledge, and some skills that are not even relevant. So my opinion is very simple. We need to teach people to learn skills and become conscious at a young age that the difference between somebody who gets more better results and the person who does not is the mastery of skills. And if I can teach that to anybody, I know for myself, I wish I learned that at a young age and I'm still evolving in that area, I would be able to make their lives much better.
Well, I got to tell you, you are critical. You are a gift to this world. The work you have done in conscious thinking and behavioral thinking for in your books and who you are, they're legendary books. Look, folks, get out there and pick up his books. I'll put the links down below to Minesh's books, and make sure that you get them and read them. They're critical ways of thinking that will help you really develop a mindset that's a growth mindset in a way of creating a future that's powerful to live into, one that pulls us forward out of creativity. We really talk about where the world's going and pulling ourselves there with the knowledge and skills that we practice to develop that. So, Minesh, your work is legendary. I'm extremely grateful to have you on this podcast. You're a gift to us, and every book that you have come out, I would love you to come out here and make sure that we celebrate them and talk to the world about them. Your work is great. So thank you for being here.
Well, my opportunity for sure, my privilege and honor. You've done a lot of good things for yourself as well as for other people around you. You served them in a very positive manner, and the way you are being a role model to your children, the people around you as a parent. To me, there is no more important role, which is why I spent all my time last few years. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I've been to Disney World 200 times, not because of Disney World.
Wow.
I used to live in Michigan, right?
And 200 times. Wait a minute. Did you refinance your house? No.
Well, let me give you the story, which will be helpful, I think, for people who are watching. Doing all this Snapchat and video chat at the middle of the night, and I discovered that. So I took away the toys, but I knew that unless she connected and related with me and the family, she's going to find other people to relate to. You know what I'm talking about, right?
That's right.
And we were in Michigan, so that year I said, okay, this winter we are going to Florida, and we'll go there for 3 months, and I will take you to Disney World or Universal Studios practically every day. So like 64 days in a row, pretty much, we went to one or the other resort. And the reason was that, and again, I can do it because I work on my own schedule as well as my children are homeschooled. So we didn't have to go the full day. We could sometimes during the week or whenever I wanted to work, say 3-4 o'clock, we go off to and Disney was much easier to navigate at that time with their policies. Today, it's a lot more difficult for me because I could just walk into park without registration, just having the ticket, right? And the reason I mention that is somewhere around that time is when my daughter, she somehow decided that she's going to do exactly what I tell her to do, no questions. And I will tell you, the teenagers, and even today at 20, I don't have to think about her following my information and instruction. It has been the easiest teenage years that I could have imagined as a parent. And I'm very happy. But that was because I invested in the relationship at the right time, where I was able to approach her and create that comfort and trust where she could feel that, my father is going to do whatever he can to help me, and I will trust him. And that was the reason for that trip, not just to go to Disney World.
Minesh, audience, if you get a second to go and pick up his book, The 7 Critical Skills They Don't Teach in School. It's a book you're going to love. Each one of the critical ways of thinking really does support our future mindset of a growth mindset. Minesh, I want to make sure that every time you have a new book that comes out, you come here to celebrate that with us. Your work is legendary. You are a gift to our society. That I love playing with you in the playground of podcasting. It's been a joy to get to know you and your books and the work that you do.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Audience, as always, if you can take a second and like and subscribe, it means the world to Minesh and I. And if you have any comments or questions or anything you want to say, even if you're mad for something we said wrong or something we said right, put that down in the comments. Look, the only way we're going to get to continue to grow as a group is to have feedback from you and our audience and how we're doing. So please take a second and like and subscribe. Do that now and put any comments you have down below. And as always, thank you very much for listening.